let's talk about what happened first.
So there's been 2 shootings of note, and we're not a channel that focuses on shootings or ambulance chasing at all whenever we can help it. But these have piped up because the left-wing commentators on any given issue can't shut their mouths and just wait for the facts to come out, and it is embarrassing to see. And they're not the only people who have ever done this in history, of course, but these are particularly bad.
Well, I mean, you've got to give them their credit. They wait for the very first sentence to come out and then see, gunman was arrested or something like that. And then they jump to a whole series of conclusions based on their own prejudices.
Yeah, and to be honest, this can just serve more as a tale of just why you shouldn't ambulance chase. If something happens that's atrocious, okay, leave it be. If you want to learn about the motives and so on and so forth, just wait for the facts to come out.
I mean, what do you lose by just not jumping on a tragedy? Like, what's lost by that? Anyway,
you don't get to push gun reform, I guess.
I guess so.
So, the first thing here is the Stop Asian Hate stuff that blew up in response to a shooting in Atlanta. So this is the Guardian reporting on the shooting itself and the FBI being under pressure to tackle anti-Asian hate crimes in the wake of the shooting, which you can already see the slow politicization there. So they give a quote from the Asian Pacific American Women's Forum. Record keeping of hate crimes against Asian Americans is so low because they're not even willing to accept that we are discriminated against and harassed because of our race. That's not true. They have the data, so I don't know what on earth she's talking about. And then she gives the data in this article, saying the latest statistics show that the FBI for 2019, 4.4% of victims of hate crime were of anti-Asian bias, compared to 48.5% of victims of hate crime being anti-black, and then 14% being anti-Hispanic. With Asians making up 5% of the population of the US, 4% of the hate crimes being them, there's just no argument there. That's just someone wasting your time. So this is just another leftist activist trying to make a point out of nothing. I don't understand it. And then there's, well, I do understand it. It's just politicizing for the sake of it.
Typical left-wing politics.
Yeah, yes. and then it's not just that group. The Guardian also mentioned here that they're concerned about Trump's xenophobic description of the coronavirus as the Chinese virus, as if that has anything to do with anything here. And you can, just to preface this, there was a reason for the Atlanta shooting being described as white supremacist and all this. The initial reason came from a Korean outlet who published this headline, Atlanta shooter tells me I'm going to kill all Asians. This was apparently based on an eyewitness account that told this outlet that that is what the shooter said. But there seems to be no other reference to this. Police have not said that's the case.
Yeah.
And that's assumingly where these left-wingers got that from. So they saw this and right, let's go. Let's run for it. Let's jump on this. First person being Elizabeth Warren, who decided to tweet out something about this, saying she's heart-stricken by the victims of Tuesday's shooting, most of whom were Asian American women. It doesn't tell you anything. Like, they have to throw it in because they...
It's the fact this most of whom.
Yeah.
It's like if most of a group being targeted is enough to say this is a hate crime against that group, then if we have a shooting where all of them are of the same group, how is that not a hate crime against that group?
Yep. I mean, when a bunch of white people get shot by someone who's non-white, what happens then? Elizabeth? But I guess nothing. Xenophobic rhetoric around this pandemic has already put the AAIP community at higher risk.
PI.
Sorry, PI. God, the acronyms, they keep getting...
I know.
Our government must use every tool possible to keep our family safe. Just say, why don't you just shut up? Just don't say anything. And then there's the stupider people. So this is the only politician I saw who was dumb enough to do this. But then this is the stupider people we'll get to. Yeah, so a white man has just assassinated 8 Asians in Atlanta. Instead of sending thoughts and prayers, white people need to dismantle the toxic whiteness that is killing us. Whiteness is terrorism.
Thank you for that very informed position, Sarah.
Jesus Christ.
I look forward to debating you again.
This is the lady... What was your debate with her? You said...
Well, she was saying that women are being oppressed because men hold all the positions of power. And at the time, Theresa May was the Prime Minister. Nicola Sturgeon was the Premier of Scotland. And there was a woman who was leading the Assembly in Wales. So I was just like, so am I... Yeah, and we've got a Queen. So I was like, so am I being oppressed as a man in this country? And she was like, and then rage quit.
Like the Windows logo.
Yeah, literally, yeah. And then just rage quit the conversation. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
And there's been 2 reactions to this, at least 2 clips that I've seen. So the police gave a conference. This is the clip I've seen most shared among, let's say, right-wing audiences for the sake of it, but this is a left-wing outlet sharing it here, so it's not exclusive, of course, in which they're pointing out that the motives of the shooter, after speaking to him and finding out from him, he gave that it was racially motivated. He gave no signs that it was even religiously motivated. He seemed to give the argument that he was a sex addict, and he wanted to eliminate locations that he saw as temptations for his sex addiction, which is... A strange motive, sure, but if that's what it is, that's what it is.
But the point is, it's not a political motive.
It's not whiteness.
It's a personal motive. He personally views these brothels as like a temptation or whatever, and so he goes on this mad rampage. That's his problem. Like this...
Yeah, and you would think people would start correcting themselves or something, but no. So the left instead entirely ignored this segment largely and just focused on this segment instead, which you can see someone reading. If you can scroll down a bit, just see the number of likes this one got as well. It's just like there are loads of these clips. And this is arguing, so they ask him, I think it was, was there anything about today that did this? And the cop responds with, he was at the end of his rope, he had a bad day, and so on and so forth. And this is taken like, oh, he's saying, boys will be boys. Like, he's having a bad day, things happen. And it's just like, that's not the case. If we go to the next one, which is just a YouTube link of the full thing, I put it at a timestamp so you can see both of those clips because they're right after each other. They seemingly ignored the clip before, the people clipping it. And you can see the context for yourself. The cop is very casually just speaking like, these are the motives of a killer. You know, this is my job every day. Yeah. This is blah, blah, blah. And the left wing have just ignored that point entirely. And the worst offender being Trevor Noah, in my opinion, the one that blew up the most. So this is a segment of his in which he tried to pin the whole thing on race, specifically anti-Asian hate for some reason. And let's just play the clip so we can see a little broken down version of his argument.
8 people dead, 6 of them Asian women. And soon we'll learn all about them and who they were in life. But all we know right now is that they are dead, and a 21-year-old white man with a gun killed them. One of the first things that's been the most frustrating for me is seeing the shooter say, oh, it wasn't racism, it was sex addiction. First of all, you, man. You killed 6 Asian people. Specifically, you went there. If there's anyone who's racist, it's a mother who kills 6 Asian women. Your murders speak louder than your words. 6 Asian women were killed. Racism, misogyny, gun violence, mental illness. And honestly, this incident might have been all of those things combined. Because it doesn't have to be one thing on its own. America is a rich tapestry of mass shooting motivations. But whatever you do, please don't tell me that this thing had nothing to do with race. Even if the shooter says that, he thinks it had to do with his sex addiction. You can't disconnect this violence from the racial stereotypes that people attach to Asian women. This guy blamed a specific race of people for his problems and then murdered them because of it. If that's not racism, then the word has no meaning.
What the hell are you saying, Trevor? Like, he literally didn't blame a race of people. He's literally making this up because he's a racial ideologue. If this isn't race, I literally have nothing to say about it. That's what he's saying.
The majority of the victims, but not exclusively, were of one race. Again, Asian is a broad concept. But
yeah, is that even a race?
Therefore, this is an anti-Asian hate crime in which he went out with a racial motivation to, I don't know, save the white race or something. And therefore, that's why he did this. Now, I know he's not saying that. But that doesn't matter, because I've got a big brain, and I can see through this.
It doesn't even matter if the shooter doesn't say it. That's why it is, because I've said so. Do you think the problem's you here, Trevor?
I mean, we have seen this as well in the West, to be fair to the stupidity. This isn't unique.
Oh, I'm not saying it is.
We've had this in response to Islamic attacks, where the gunman shouts, Allahu Akbar, and then starts shooting people, who are blasphemers or kuffar. Yeah. And then people are like, man, he must have been treated badly by the system. That must be his motivation. Nothing to do with Islam. Yeah. So this isn't unique, but my God. I mean, just shut your mouth. Just say nothing. I don't know what's wrong with you.
But why is it beyond the pale for us to go, okay, it doesn't seem like he was a racist. It seems like he had a weird problem about sex.
Given that he's said that.
Yeah, I mean...
And he's got the history of a sex addict. Anyway, so the other point he made there, which is don't tell me that this has nothing to do with racism, Man, okay, fine, because that's all you can think, isn't it? That's literally all you can think. And there's a great response by Lauren Chen here, pointing out that, honestly, why would the shooter lie about his motivations? The whole world just knows he's a mass murderer. Do you think he's just too shy to admit that he's a racist too? It's like, well, I might be a mass murderer, but I'm not a racist. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? That's just obvious nonsense.
That's such a weird tangent for Trevor Noah to try and crowbar into it. Like, you just desperately know it is, even though there's literally no evidence and the shooter said it's not.
And he's not the only one that did this. There were a whole bunch of them. It's just the worst offender, in my opinion. Yeah. Because, I mean, especially someone with a major show. He's not just making, like, one tweet. Like, you can see here, this is the graphic she's responding to. But he did, like, a segment about this. I'm just like, Jesus, man, I can't get over it. But the other point of evidence, let's say, so if you want to look at the evidence for the argument that he was doing this out of a, I don't know, what would you call it? A hatred of sex. Because I'm not even sure what that is, because he relayed no religious motive. So it's not a hyper-Christian who's like, die, heathens, or, something like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to have been the case. So this is the evidence I've seen. So this is from the website, this image here, which shows, for people who are listening, gold spa, home, contact, about, and then a photo gallery of 3, let's say, Asian women in tight dresses with the words gold over each of them, posing in a promiscuous manner. I'm not even sure.
Suggestive manner, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I know what impression I'm getting from this.
But that doesn't matter. So we go to the next one. So this person here, this is Ted Liao, who was trying to argue that this doesn't matter, because he went to the Google reviews and started reading the Google reviews, and we'll get into them in a minute. But he says here, the murderer targeted young Asian massage parlor. He then drove 27 miles to another Asian spa. Here's the review for Gold Spa. Good atmosphere with Korean girls giving proper massage. If the murderer's temptations were Asian women and he kills them, that's racially motivated.
That's not what that means, Ted.
Are you an idiot? I don't understand. Like, if there were white brothels nearby and he targeted them, would that mean that he's, he hates the white race or something?
I guess so. Ted would have to be. He'd be forced to by his own logic.
He would deny it, though.
Of course he would.
And then there's...
Because it's a nonsense statement. It's obviously not about race.
And then we'll just go through the Google reviews.
I mean, hang on. Before we go, I don't know why they aren't pushing the misogyny angle, right? Because, I mean, if this guy's got a sex addiction, he's probably got strange feelings about women, and he's obviously confused about women, and if he's visiting like brothels and stuff like this, he's obviously got emotional problems with regards to intimacy and relationships. So, I mean, it would be much more sensible if you are going to try and politicize this to be like, right, this is clearly misogyny.
No, because in this particular climate, there's been a sharp rise in attention on Asians being attacked and therefore Asian hate crimes.
Well, yeah, sure.
The kind of people committing those hate crimes we'll get into in a minute.
Yeah, but the point is, like, just...
They feel like they've got a special angle there.
Yeah, in isolation, it would be much more sensible for the progressives to politicize this along the lines of gender. Just saying.
Even though it would equally be nonsense by the
Even then, yeah, it's not... Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't know it's not. I don't know this guy doesn't have a problem with women. I mean,
no, we just have the statements from the police.
It seems like he probably does, to be honest, if I was going to suggest. But anyway, let's carry on.
So then we'll go for the Google reviews just to get the evidence. So that's the hard thing here, evidence. So you could just look at whether or not this guy's telling the truth, that he was targeting massage parlors because they are some kind of brothel. And this is the page. And then we get to the next one. This was 6 months ago. So some guy posting was very expensive. She took me in the back and told me about $400.
Christ.
$400 for a massage. Okay, maybe that's not convincing.
Right, kings never spend that amount of money on any woman, ever.
So this is a review posted 9 months ago. I've been here about 5 times. The quality of the service depends on which girl you get. There was one I really liked, but it's been a while and I forgot her name. All I remember is that she's kind of tall. Plan to return here in the near future. I hope she's still there. Okay. Next one is a year ago. If you're wondering, yes, it is. Prices run usually from 300 to 500. You're welcome. 5 stars. It's a year ago. And then there's another one, which is 4 years ago. So, this is not the proper location for a regular standard massage. This place offers more than what you think. It's that wasn't the absolutely on your mind. They are more adult-rated massage parlor, and the prices are extremely high, not even affordable to even go unless you have a black card or anything over $300. I mean, I'm not saying this is definitive proof, let's say, but I mean, if this isn't enough to suggest that he might have actually just done it because this definitely seems to be a brothel. I mean, by the website, the Google reviews, people literally saying long before this attack has taken place. Yep, it's one of those places.
Well, why are we even questioning it? It's obviously a brothel.
What evidence do you need,
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
I mean, just their website alone is more than enough to show that there's a brothel. You don't have like these very scantily clad, suggestively positioned women if this is like an above board normal place.
But nah, it's got nothing to do with whatever the shooter says or any of the evidence. Instead, it's white supremacy.
Okay, yeah.
So this is the CNN proposing this. So white supremacy and hate are haunting Asian Americans in response.
Oh.
And there was a whole bunch of these. I just chose CNN because they're the most stupid.
Why is it every video I see about an Asian person getting attacked in the street, it's not a white person?
Yeah, it's disproportionately another group of people. And let's name the group of people responsible. So this is the next one, just a tweet of some guy tweeting out statistics, the most dangerous thing known to man. For every one act of violence by an Asian person against a black person, there are 280 acts committed by a black person against an Asian person. If you want to load up the statistics, just so people can read it. So you can see here, so of the offenders who are black against Asians here, 27.5% of offenses against Asians, or the hate crimes, are by black people, even though black people make up 13% of the US population. Whites underrepresented, Hispanics underrepresented, so on and so forth. It's like, okay.
Interesting.
So it doesn't seem to be that white supremacy is doing this. I mean, black supremacy, if you want to go down that route.
Well, why would white supremacy make black people do this?
I can't get over it. It's that subversive. It convinces random black people to engage in Asian hate crimes, I suppose.
Like it did with black people attacking Jews as well.
Yes.
In New York.
And Lauren Chen had a good response to this, which is just making fun of all this nonsense. That's the argument here as well, that Asians essentially have it good in the world, and all of their success is also white supremacy. So someone pointing out here that it was legal to ban Asian Americans from owning land up until 1952. And then Lauren Chen's response, Asian Americans face systemic racial oppression in America. Now they're one of the most affluent ethnic groups. What makes their story different than those of so many black communities? Did white people just wake up one day and say, look at the Asians, and go, nah, you're cool now? No, of course not. I mean, it's obviously not how it went. But that is how it went in the leftist universe. In the leftist universe, that is exactly what took place. So if we go to the next one, this is the model minority myth. So this is what's pushed endlessly within leftist circles to try and explain away how Asians are beating every other ethnic group in every Western country.
Before we go on, I'm just going to say, I don't know why Asians are doing so well, but I'm going to guess that it's something to do with good education, family values, and hard work ethic.
Yeah, it's not just Asians either. I mean, England
Obviously.
is
Indians, Jews.
Well, England's actually a perfect example of this case, which is that it's culture that matters. Because we've had immigration, large-scale immigration, from India and Bangladesh and Pakistan.
Yeah.
And the only things that largely separate these places is cultural differences.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why it's partitioned.
Yes.
And yet the Indians are doing literally the best of every ethnic group in England. And
the Pakistanis and Bangladeshis doing almost the worst.
Yeah. It's like, well,
it's clearly not a genetic factor then, is it? You know, it's clearly something you're doing.
It's also not because of bigotry or racial prejudice, because barely anyone in England can tell the difference. Not to be rude.
No, that's true. Like, there are Sikh guys who get attacked for being Muslim, and they're like,
yeah.
no.
And there's plenty of Indians who dislike Pakistan, so when someone uses a racial epithet calling them a Pakistani, they just turn around like, I'm Indian, don't call me that.
Yeah, but Sikhism was also a product of the Islamic invasions of India. So it was a response to the Muslim invasions. So, like, hey, you're a Muslim. It's like, what?
Yeah, I know.
I carry this dagger expressly because I'm not a Muslim.
But it's, the fact that, okay, the only things that separate there is the cultures themselves of those groups. It is not how the white population interacts with them, because they can't tell the damn difference, and it is not because of anything else there except culture. So the other point there that they make in this article is they're like, okay, yeah, maybe Asians are doing better than every other group, and yeah, black communities have been around a long time and are doing much worse, but you know what? Slavery. That's the argument. It's just, yeah, but slavery. Slavery's a thing. Because they have to give the whole point of like, well, yeah, the United States did put all the Japanese people in internment camps. Yeah, we had to give them reparations for that. Yeah, there was discrimination laws on the books about where you could be, the Chinese Exclusion Act, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, yeah, well, what about slavery? You never had that. That's why blacks are at the bottom. It's like, Jesus Christ. When does it end then? When does that argument run out of steam?
I don't know.
Another 200 years?
I guess never. But, I mean, Thomas Sowell's right. It seems to be a direct consequence of the introduction of the welfare state.
Yeah, and it's also like the progressives here aren't any friends of Asian people. I love
they're
like,
busy trying to make them white so they can blame them for oppressing black people.
This is also the absurdity of like, you've seen the anti-Asian group. So there's like mentioned in a few articles I've seen just like printed to, like a couple of days ago.
Yeah,
the left is still trying to push like anti-Asian hate is on the rise. Please join the progressive movement. It's just like,
why would anyone Asian join the progressives?
Like, you literally hate them.
Yeah.
It's like the Jews joining the Democrats or something. It's like, yeah, but you own all the money and we're going to make you pay for it or something. It's like, these are not normal people.
No.
These people see the world entirely through race.
Yes.
And therefore want to oppress you on that basis. And the best example being, I think it was Harvard. So we can get the next one.
Oh, yeah.
So this is the affirmative action battle. Apparently that's still going on. They haven't actually accepted the decision and they're appealing.
Yeah, the court told them, no, sorry, we know that you're being discriminated against, but tough.
So for people who don't know, this was Asians applying to Harvard. Harvard decided they had too many Asians because they have racial quotas, and decided we will accept less Asians, and we will boost the black student population arbitrarily. So it wasn't based on their academic ability or extracurricular activities.
And then,
it was based on their skin.
Well, not just that. Because it was based on their skin, they essentially had to turn around and say the Asians are bad people that we don't want coming here because they're bad people. It's like, seems unfair, you know. Blimey, you talk about, you know, like 18, 19-year-old kids. It's like you're a bad person because you're Asian. You can't come here.
But that's the progressive worldview.
Yeah.
That's what you're signing up for if you sign up for that. Which, Jesus,
it's horrible. It's absurd as well.
But there is one good response I've seen out of this.
Yep.
Sorry. There is another way of dealing with this, which is what a lot of Asian Americans are apparently doing, which is buying guns.
Yep. That's your right if you live in America.
That's the way to deal with it, I think. Like, if you're worried about your community having people attacking people in the streets or whatever, well, an armed society is a polite society. I think that is a true maxim and always will be. So, yeah, I mean, you have a right to own firearms.
You have a natural right to self-defense. The rooftop Koreans are returning. Nature is healing. We were the virus.
I mean, I think, what was it? Like, I think it was 3 or 4 of the victims in this case were Korean as well. So it's like, well, okay, if any of those families...
Who cares? It's just Asian, mate. It's just a big blob that's Asian.
Yeah, but if anyone is concerned about that, rooftop Koreans. That's the correct way of in response to an act like this, not to sit around and blame white supremacy, as if that has anything to do with it.
If you enjoyed this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can watch the full broadcast live every weekday at 1 p.m. UK time on lotuseaters.com.